I hope you have read my book, Who Painted My State Purple, by now. If not, I encourage you to read it because in this book, which is a book of fiction, I explain how China had put some special chips on motherboards that essentially called home with some data that was running on those server boards. This is something that really happened, and it fictionally describes the effects of that. So now comes news that China has been infiltrating the firmware on the motherboards of a couple of manufacturers. The ones that are named thus far are two famous names, GIGABYTE and ASUS. And what it means is that, these days you don't have what is called as the BIOS, or the basic input output system. That used to be the firmware. That's the one that boots up your Pentium processor or 486, whatever the Intel family or equivalent. It is the one that brings up this process. It will also give you all sorts of other features, like in some cases it might even enable the mouse and keyboard and so on and so forth. So now there is this new strand called CosmicStrand that actually embeds itself into this firmware when you update your firmware. And all these firmwares are under the category of UEFI, which is an advanced version of BIOS. And UEFI is something that you can upgrade just like the way you would upgrade any software. When you boot up, sometimes it will ask you, do you want to upgrade your firmware? Or if you are having a bug, such as one of your peripherals is not getting detected or something is malfunctioning, you will see on the motherboard website that, oh, go and update the firmware to this particular version and everything will work. For example, some Bluetooth support or some new device support at the firmware level, those things are usually done. So as part of that upgrade, China has now infiltrated that with a bug that can cause serious consequences for you operationally. Now you can format your hard drive, you can uninstall and reinstall your operating system, you can go back to factory settings. It will not go away because this firmware is independent of all those things, much lower level. The only way to fix this thing is to, if in case the firmware is on a firmware ROM, you can pull that thing out, find a new blank one, put it in there, and then upgrade to a known good version of the firmware on that motherboard. Anyway, these are all possibilities. What you don't know is when this thing gets embedded on your firmware, you would not know what is going on. You will be blissfully losing data or something else goes wrong, and you would just be wondering, what did I do wrong? So some of the problems that afflict your computers may be because of such problem, especially if your motherboard is ASUS or GIGABYTE. It doesn't stop there. The Senate has come out with a report where they have said that the Chinese have tried to infiltrate the Federal Reserve, and they have issued a findings of fact. For example, they said China routinely tries to steal data, taking advantage of the open and transparent practices of the Fed. What kind of data were they looking for? Sometimes what happens is the Fed, when it fixes the interest rates, it has to do modeling. What does the modeling mean? Modeling is taking all the data that you have today, looking at what might happen, come down the pipeline because of something that you may have done, and then seeing what the economy or the country looks like 6 months down the road, 1 year down the road. These models are pretty accurate. They're very sophisticated. Many people work on them, tweak them, get them just right. In fact, you have to even account for imports, exports, a conflict in some other part of the world. All sorts of things have to be taken into account before you do the modeling. And these kinds of data apparently have made their way into China. What the Fed has been unable to do is to counter China and put its own stuff on the Chinese computers, unfortunately, because China has a fairly effective firewall, which, as you know, was designed by Intel and their hardware. Remember that episode that we had with Sasha Gong? Anyway, you have to go back and look at that video. And some of the Federal Reserve employees, once they quit Federal Reserve, continue to have access to some of the confidential data in the Federal Reserve System, and it is believed that some of them may have shared it inadvertently or under threats to the Chinese. So what has the Fed done? Now it has come out with a series of recommendations, or rather I should say the Senate committee. I'll give you the link to that in the references section. I urge you to go and read it. It's a fairly detailed document. It talks about specific instances where malfeasance has happened. They want the United States to have a bipartisan, that is across the parties, both Republican and Democrat, Safeguarding American Institutions Act. The Fed must devise a comprehensive strategy to combat illegal and extra-legal transfers of US intellectual property and research. So these things are already in place. It is just that if it gets into the hands of the wrong person, it is too late. Even if you go back and punish the person who gave it, the damage is already done. The Fed must enhance its relationship with the federal law enforcement agencies such as the FBI and the CIA. At a more basic level, they need to be able to educate their employees of the side effects of their job, the importance of their job, the criticality of their job, and so on and so forth. Please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. If you liked our research, please click on the super thanks button and express your appreciation. Thank you very much. Namaskar.